Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Houston Texans' offseason of building around C.J. Stroud reached a crescendo Wednesday. Also, the Yankees are looking really good really early in the Major League Baseball season. And what's next for Josh Allen now that his top target, his only target, is gone? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
We knew Stefon Diggs was not happy in Buffalo. What we didn't know was that it would be the Houston Texans to swoop in and save him. He is headed to Texas with C.J. Stroud, DeMeco Ryans, and a team that looks like they have a chance to push the big boys in the AFC. Cody Davis from Locked On Texans joins me now. And Cody, this came out of nowhere on a Wednesday in April. What was your first reaction when you saw the report?
Well, first, I'm not going to say that I was stunned. I was in awe, but I wasn't stunned because, the one thing that I know about Nick Caserio, and this goes all the way back to the NFL Combine, we was always told, myself and my good friend Big Sarge, we was always told that Nick Caserio, do not be surprised if Nick Caserio pulls off a massive trade because he has something up his sleeve. Mm-hmm. And last week, me and John Higbee, my co-host over at Locked On Texans, we talked about what could all of this mean in terms of you restructure the contract of Shaq Mason, I believe, last Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. And then last Friday morning, you restructured the contract of Titus Howard. And that opened up somewhere in the ballpark to $29 to $31 million. So we like,
now, why would they do that, Cody?
Exactly. Now, why would you do that? Especially considering that majority, if not all of your top tier targets are gone in free agency. Yeah. You're not clearing that money out for anybody that you're trying to draft, especially knowing that your first pick comes at pick number 42. We was just looking at it from a standpoint, they have to have a wide receiver in mind that they are trying to get. And if you remember, Peter, about a month ago, they came up short in landing Keenan Allen. So it's like, okay, so there's T. Higgins out there, there's Stefon Diggs out there, what could this possibly mean? We talked about it on Saturday, and here we are about 3 days later. They end up pulling the trade for Stefon Diggs.
Okay, so all is happy in Texans land right now, right? Houston is excited about getting Stefon Diggs, one of the best receivers in the league. We have to talk about, though, the fact that now this is the second team where Stefon Diggs has been unhappy enough to force his way out. What is your concern level about the cultural fit on a pretty young team overall, where the vibes until, for the last year with DeMeco Ryans have been immaculate?
Yeah, and that's the only negative about bringing Stefon Diggs here to the city of Houston. I mean, as you mentioned, Peter, this is the second time he has forced his way out of a situation. And we know that Stefon Diggs has that quote-unquote diva mentality with him. But what I would say is this. Ever since the hiring of Coach DeMeco Ryans, every single player has talked about wanting to come here to the city of Houston to play for him. Mm-hmm. And they always talked about one of the things that they love most about Coach DeMeco Ryans is, one, that he's a former player. So having a head coach that's your former player, it always does something to the player. It's like they are able to gain, the coaches are able to gain their respect even more. So you look at it from that standpoint, but to him, most importantly, I look at it from a standpoint, and I've been a Stefon Diggs fan for a long time. I look at it from a standpoint, every time he's forced his way out of a situation, it was almost like he just wants to win. The situation he couldn't win in Minnesota. I'm interested to know what in the world went on in Buffalo. That was definitely a winnable situation, but over the last 2 years, it seemed like something was going on behind closed doors that made him say, you know what, I want out of this situation. I don't think
it seems like a reset year in Buffalo. That seemed like part of it. Like, hey, you guys are not trying to win this year. I'm out then. Like, get me out of here. Exactly. You bring him here to the city of Houston. You have a head coach in DeMeco Ryans, who is definitely, I know this might sound like a cliche, but he's definitely a leader of men. There's so many guys that I've talked to inside that locker room, and so many of his former players has talked about, DeMeco Ryans just have this certain leadership about him that makes you want to get a line and do your job and do whatever you need to do in order to help this organization. But it's not just head coach DeMeco Ryans, it's also all of the players. I remember when we got the news that as rookies, CJ Stroud, Will Anderson Jr., those are 2 of your 6 captains. Why? They're in their first season. Who's going to follow these guys? And look what happened. Yeah,
at the end of the season.
Everyone.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the season, we was told that even though they were rookies, their voice in the locker room held so much weight. And I think, the culture that the Houston Texans have built, already established, the foundation has been built. I just know that I don't think Stefon Diggs is going to come in with that same mindset and that same attitude of being this quote unquote diva. I think he's going to fit well here in the city of Houston.
Stay up to date all year long on the Houston Texans by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Texans on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, no Gerrit Cole. No problem for the New York Yankees. They're off to a fast start without their ace. Before we get to that, voters have rejected the Chiefs and the Royals. The sports calendar is loaded, and FanDuel is making it even more exciting to get in on the action, because right now new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet the tourney, bet Major League Baseball, the NBA, NHL, and so much more. You can do a New York parlay for Thursday. The Mets host the Tigers and are desperate for a win. Meanwhile, the Knicks are hanging on to their playoff seeding while hosting the Kings. FanDuel likes both the Mets and the Knicks to win. The Mets minus 130 on the money line, while the Knicks minus 162. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a big win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you the can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The future of the Royals and Chiefs in Kansas City thrown into question Tuesday when residents of Jackson County, Missouri, resoundingly voted down a sales tax measure that would have helped to fund a new downtown ballpark along with major renovations to Arrowhead Stadium. Royals owner John Sherman and Chiefs president Mark Donovan acknowledged long before the final tally that the initiative would fail. More than 58% of voters ultimately rejected the plan. Chiefs president Mark Donovan said, "We feel we put forth the best offer for Jackson County. We're ready to extend the longstanding partnership the teams have enjoyed with this county." What the people of the county are saying, Mark Donovan, is billionaires should pay for their own dang stadium renovations. On the hardwood, two teams fighting for playoff positioning. The Magic were in the Big Easy to face the New Orleans Pelicans.
This is Philip Rossman-Wright, the host of Locked On Magic, coming to you from the Smoothie King Center, where the Orlando Magic defeat the New Orleans Pelicans, I believe 117-108. I don't have my box score with me, but that's neither here nor there because the Magic won, and they won doing all the things that they're going to have to do when they get to the playoffs. And that's ultimately what this game came down to. It was about playoff physicality. It was about playoff composure. It was about keeping their cool and finding their way to win the game, playing Magic basketball to win the game, especially a big thing after Monday's win over the Portland Trail Blazers. This was a game that was just all about what the Magic will have to do when they get to the playoffs and get into buildings like this and play games on the road. They were, they weren't able to hit a ton of shots early, but they stayed with their offense. They stayed with their defense. They eventually were able to pull away. They were eventually able to get some shots down. And then Paolo Banchero took over in the third quarter with 12 of his 32 points to push the Magic into the lead. The confidence was flowing, and then it got messy in the fourth quarter, but the Magic were able to survive and win. This is what playoff basketball is going to be like, a huge win.
And the Minnesota Twins handed the Milwaukee Brewers their first loss.
Minnesota wins 7-3 to split with the Brewers and move their record to 3-2 through their first road trip of the season.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I swear I saw a Minnesota Twin hit a ball that went over the fence, and I kind of forgot what that looked like. But boy, was it refreshing.
I love overreacting. I love overreacting to small sample sizes. I had all the numbers prepared. I was going to rant about the RISP numbers. I was going to rant about the slugging percentage to start the season. I've got those numbers prepared. I think they're still interesting to get into with regard to how bad this offense was for 4.5 games, but they break through with a 5-run 7th inning highlighted by the aforementioned Ryan Jeffers 3-run bomb.
The New York Yankees have started the season 6-1, and Aaron Judge hasn't even gotten hot yet. Just hit his first home run in a 6-5 win over the Diamondbacks in extra innings. Stacey Getzulias from Locked On Yankees joins me now. And Stacey, you're already ready to extend Juan Soto. He's a hero in the Bronx already. What have you seen so far from the Yankees in just this first 7 games?
Seeing a lot of barking in the dugout. That seems to be a new thing whenever they hit a home run. I'm just seeing a different vibe on the team. It's just, I swear, just bringing in Juan Soto and his presence is changing that lineup. It's unbelievable. And even if he doesn't do anything, just the way that he works out in the cage has helped some of the younger guys change what they do at the plate. And it's just infectious in a good way, which is nice.
Say more about what you mean there. Just him being a positive influence. Guys are able to watch him, or like he's working with them, or what do you think the impact is?
Yeah. Oswaldo Cabrera was talking about it. He had a big series against Houston. He's cooled off a little bit, but he, turned into Barry Bonds against Houston over the weekend. And he said he was watching Soto a lot in the batting cage and seeing how he prepares. And, that sort of thing really helps these guys because you can get complacent when you're doing things. And I know for Oswaldo, a lot of his problems in 23 were that he was hearing too many things from too many people. And sometimes if you hear too many things, it really messes with your batting stance and everything else that's happening. And if you're hearing all those different voices, you have trouble hitting. And I think watching how Soto prepares and just watching what he does is helping the kids, which is great.
Yeah, and you mentioned the kids part of this. Like, this is a mixed lineup, and that had not been the case of some previous iterations of the Yankees. They were like, no, we're just going to ride with these veterans, some older guys who maybe shouldn't have been in the lineup. And I know you've been talking about some of that stuff. But for the starting pitching, where do you see that right now?
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Carlos Rodon.
I think that's the appropriate reaction, by the way. Yeah.
Carlos Rodon pitched on Wednesday, looked better, lasted longer. That was the key because I spoke about that after his first start, that he needed to last more than 4 1/3 innings, and he got into the 6th. So that's good. It wasn't a terrible outing for him, but no, they really have to step it up because not having Gerrit Cole is a very big loss in that starting rotation. They're doing fine. It's just funny that Luke Weaver is leading the team in wins right now because the starters can't make it past a certain point.
Based on how last season went, the injuries and all of that, too early to get excited about 6-1?
I don't think it's too early to get excited about 6-1 because, you look at the schedule, you see 4 to start in Houston and you think, oh boy, because that's how I felt going into it. And when they swept, I thought, okay, so, even if they finish this road trip 4-3, that's not that bad in a 7-game road trip to start the season. So I always tell my listeners, just temper your expectations. It's, the cliche, it's a marathon, not a sprint. There's going to be plenty of ups and downs. This is an up. We're in the upswing right now, and it's okay to be excited. Just don't put too much stock into 6-1.
Yeah, that rational down the middle thinking always makes great radio, unfortunately. But that's the reality of it a lot. And I think that's the beauty also of what we do on the Locked On Podcast Network is we get to be honest with our audiences about stuff like that. You mentioned Gerrit Cole, not having him, the rehab on that elbow. Where are we with that right now?
He was on the game the other night talking about it, and he's doing some movement with the elbow, but he's throwing with his other arm because he's trying to make sure it's completely pain-free. And right now he's basically the de facto pitching coach. So he's traveling with them and he's in the dugout and he's giving guys advice. Nestor came out of the game the other night. He was talking to him. Even on Wednesday, he was talking with Rodon after his first inning, after he gave up a run and was, very demonstrative in his speaking. So he's basically being like the pitching coach while he's injured.
It makes me feel very old that Gerrit Cole is now 33 years old and the old guy on a pitching staff anywhere. I don't appreciate that, Gerrit.
No, it's not nice.
Stay up to date on the New York Yankees by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Yankees on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, where does Josh Allen go from here? With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section, and Gametime picks the seats for big-time savings. And the Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section in a row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. For a limited time, all users can get $20 off any Major League Baseball purchase of $100, $150 or more, even better, in the Gametime app with code FIRSTPITCH. Terms apply. That's code FIRST, PITCH. For $20 off from March 25th to April 14th. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Stefon Diggs is gone. Gabe Davis is gone. Stalwarts of the defensive secondary gone. What is Josh Allen going to do? Joe Marino has some thoughts on the most recent Locked On Bills.
There's a lot of different ways that they can get this done, but something's coming. And there's a deep wide receiver class for them to take advantage of. And maybe that's part of it. And maybe there's a veteran coming. I mean, Tyler Boyd's out there. Odell Beckham Jr.'s out there. Michael Thomas, who has some familiarity with Joe Brady. Michael Gallup, DJ Chark. Like, something is coming here. The Bills are not playing a game today. Let's let it play out. And let's see the full puzzle come together.
Joe Burrow said the Bengals' window was as long as he would play. And that's what it seemed would also be true with Josh Allen, that he was just the kind of quarterback that could make it work. Every year, he gives you a chance. I thought he was the MVP last season. That was with Stefon Diggs and Gabe Davis. But at some point, you have to take an honest assessment of where your team is. And when you're getting older in the secondary, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer and Trey White, these guys were all pro caliber players for you. Keyword, they were. They aren't anymore. And this team has not been able to restock the coffers with young talent on a consistent basis. They just haven't drafted well enough. They haven't developed well enough to say, we're just going to replace all these guys and it's going to be fine. They haven't hit on receivers who can pick up the slack. We think Dalton Kincaid and Khalil Shakir are nice players. They're not Stefon Diggs and Gabe Davis, not right now. So what are the Bills? They took a sober look at themselves. What are the Bills? They're honest about where they are right now. And they're willing to say, it appears, we'll take a year, we'll reset this thing, and in a year from now, we've cleared out a bunch of money, we're going to bring in some new players, and a year from now, we'll have the runway with the cap going up to make another run at this because we have Josh Allen. And who knows, maybe we luck into enough in this draft. Allen takes even a little bit of a step forward. He is the MVP, and they make an unexpected playoff run. gravy right now in this build. It's also true that Sean McDermott, his job is very much on the line. They might reset this, win 6 or 7 games, and need a new head coach in a year. Just because they're trying to do the right thing doesn't mean the right thing is going to happen or that it's going to work. And finally, thinking about Final Four tickets this weekend, you'll have an easier time going to one of the men's games than the women. The average price paid for a ticket on the resale market this week was twice as high for the women's NCAA Final Four compared with that of the men's semifinals, according to a technology company that analyzes prices across multiple platforms. This we call the Caitlin Clark effect. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? You have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel brought to you every day, programmed specifically for you with the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you the can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports today, what can we expect from Final Four weekend? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.